So the picture is far more like this. It's like an iceberg that is going in this direction. I've only been thinking of it as what I see at the conscious level, what appears on my screen, so to speak. This here's happening in my hard drive. This is happening way below the level of what my consciousness can reach. And when I say, I'm going to stop going this way, what I want you to imagine is this. Imagine we have an iceberg, and we have a penguin standing on the iceberg. And the penguin sees that he's going south, and the iceberg is going south. One day, he says, I'm going to go north. This is the condition of most people who come into and unfortunately go out of treatment centers. They are like the penguin who has decided he is going to go north. So he turns around and he may with great determination, even push north. And we wonder why we have this cycle of relapse, feeling shitty about ourselves, working hard, getting some recovery, being unable to maintain that recovery, bringing ourselves back down again, up again, back down again, up again, back down again. And yet you'll hear us pontificate at meetings about insanity. Insanity, the most common definition you'll hear in AA, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Total garbage. Total garbage. Total denial. That's describing denial. Because here's what's really happening, and anybody watching any one of us sees this. We're doing the same thing over and over again because it always gets the same result. There is a force that we want to deny that is bringing us back to a level of sense of failure, low self-esteem, whatever you want to call it, a set point. And it repetitively brings us back down to how you feel the day you sat on the edge of the bed, having once again relapsed. And somehow there is a force that is pulling that back down. And I've been doing this for over 30 years. One of my mentors had been doing it for 20 after he got out of Folsom Prison. And he's the one that pointed this out to me. He said, I really shudder when I hear them say it's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, because he said, and he was sort of saying, that's sort of similar to this here. Like, why doesn't this stupid penguin know that doesn't work? We are doing it because it brings us back to some sense of deserving. This is who or the place I deserve. And the real recovery, guys, real recovery is not drying out your body, not even drying out your brain. It is maintaining this recovery. Because as we recover, we are creating a tension between this low self-esteem in our subconscious and the quality of life that we are capable of living. And we have created a tension, and you know how you can resolve that tension immediately? Bring this down. Recovery is where I retain and maintain support long enough for this to come up. And that's recovery. That's recovery. The other is just detox. Detoxing your body, detoxing your mind. Recovery is maintaining and this quality of life with enough support long enough for this to come up. And it does come up. That's why recovery is a wonderfully positive thing. But it's very saddening to see people underestimating it and kind of thinking that it's like somebody who's got, really bad diabetes or something, completely underestimating it and saying, yeah, I'm going to cut out white bread from now on. No, you need insulin. It's just underestimating a very, very lethal problem. And that's what denial does. Yeah.
One of the things that I sometimes feel is like we're not normal. And sometimes all of the work and all of the meetings and all of the steps and all of the this, it gets exhausting. It's like all this work. And it's just like, for me, I just got tired of that.
Yeah. And you rewarded yourself how?
Yeah, I went out.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just so exhausting to deal with so much all the time. And the meetings every day. And not everybody else has to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but we all have different conditions, and it's always our choice to not deal with stuff. We could decide not to take chemo if we have cancer or whatever, we can all decide. But while we can feel very sorry for ourselves that all I have to do, we didn't have a drip in our arm, right? Sitting at meetings. We weren't lying on a table with marks directing the radiation, right? And so sometimes what's going on for us is our self-defeat is tugging at us and forming these ideas that permit us to go back, right? And we get the, we get the fuck-its, right? And, most of us have gotten that. And that is usually the result of a long period of feeling sort of, why do I have to do this? We usually have been carrying a resentment at my condition. Like, why do I have to do this? Why me? Why do my friends not have to do this? And there's no answer to that question. I remember this one guy in graduate school, one of the professors had a heart attack, a young guy. And I remember afterwards when he came back, it's like, don't you sort of feel like sorry for yourself about this? Like, why? He was a great skier and a great athlete and all of this, and he had this heart attack that just felled him. And when he came back, he was like frail and everything. And he said, well, I have to turn around. Why not me? It's happening to people all around me. And he said, I get into self-pity, then pretty soon I've built up a resentment, and then pretty soon I've got, and this is another way of looking at this that might be helpful in that regard. We're dealing with something that operates very much as an obsession. obsession, and obsession fulfills itself in compulsion, right? So, obsession is the mental, right? Obsession is this idea. The French call it a fixed idea, an idea that lurks there and won't go away. And what does obsession, do any of you have any OCD? What is it?
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah, but what
Oh, I'm
partic-
a neat freak about everything, and everything has to have a certain order, and I can't leave until it's done like that.
Okay, you can't leave until it's done, right? So the mental makes you do stuff. Compulsive behavior, right? Obsessive compulsive is that obsession in the mind leads to compulsive behavior. Do you have any OCD? What is yours?
Basically, I have to be a perfectionist and I can't.
Perfectionism, yeah, yeah. And it can be anything from like compulsive washing your hands to compulsive checking, is the stove off? I know people who go back and back and back and back. Remember the movie with Jack Nicholson? What is it, As Good as It Gets? Remember that? He had his whole routine, like he had to lock the door, he had to do this, put the bolt, unlock it, lock it, you know, and he had, you know, the soap, and he had to like throw away the soap every time he, you know, and so this is like extreme obsessive compulsive, but the obsession leads to the compulsion. So think about your addiction this way. If you think about your addiction this way, what we talk about in treatment and in AA and all of that is we're talking about erecting a wall between the obsession and the compulsion. Does that ring a bell with any of you? Do you know what I'm talking about? Huh? Do you know what I'm saying? Huh?
Separate between obsession and compulsion?
Yeah, an obsession is in the mind, right?
Yeah.
It's an idea that keeps thinking about things, right? And it leads to compulsive behavior, right? Yeah, so obsession, compulsion, right? Obsession leading to compulsion, right? So obsession fulfills itself in compulsion, right? If it doesn't get the compulsion, it's antsy, right? And so, you know that phrase in the Big Book where it says, alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful? That's not right, of course. We know that, right? You know what is cunning, baffling, and powerful? The obsession is cunning, baffling, and powerful. So the obsession wants to use, right? You have prevented it with your program of recovery, right? What is now the object of the obsession? Huh? Are you with me?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. What now becomes the object of the obsession? What does it need to do to get to the compulsion? Huh? Have you followed like what I was saying? That when our recovery program is something that interferes between the obsession and fulfilling itself in behavior, right? So the idea of drugs or alcohol and the use. The idea we obsess, we use, right? We obsess, we use. We have now put up something between them, right? So now, what does the obsession have to do?
Break that barrier.
Huh?
Break down the wall.
It has to attack. It has to attack this. And it's cunning, baffling, and powerful. So does it say, I'm going to attack this so I can use. No, it says, these meetings are taking so much of my time. They're so boring. The people are stupid. I'm tired listening to these stories over and over, right? So what does my obsession, which is clever, subtle, cunning, how does it attack this? By trying to remove this while maintaining all along that it is not with any goal to use, right? Of course, anybody watching us, any sane person watching us knows what we're doing, right? We're talking ourselves back into using. Because they're not deluded by our obsession, but we're deluded by our obsession because we believe, used to be, one of the big ones that used to be all the AA meetings, everybody smoked. Now here you would have like a 3-pack a day person who used to sit in smoky cocktail lounges talking about, I can't go to those meetings, they're so smoky. I mean, anybody with half a brain, knows that what's happening is the obsession is trying to remove that which prevents it fulfilling itself, right? So all of the stuff that you were talking about, the self-pity, that I have to do all of this, I feel so abnormal, this is your obsession, is really saying, and of course, I have no intention of drinking or using all along, as I, gradually weaken this here to where it is practically not a defense any longer. And then, I don't know why I relapsed. Something must have happened. Well, yeah, what happened was my obsession won and got to fulfill itself. And this self-defeating man against himself, as Karl Menninger called it, this self-defeat, this power of self-defeat. And what's hard for us being in it to see, other people see clearly. They see us talking ourselves out of recovery. They see that. If they've been around us, they see us talking ourselves back into resenting what I have to do for recovery. They see us resenting the meetings, resenting the time, resenting calling the sponsor. They see us resenting. And we'll get to this a bit later because we talk about commitment and stuff like that, where that comes from. But so we're dealing with something that it is lethal to underestimate the power of this. I didn't get this at all for about 3 years. And during those 3 years, I was in 3 different treatment centers. I detoxed 4 times during that 3 years, but I was in 3 treatment centers. And some of the people that were at the first one with me came to visit me, and they were taking their 3-year chips. And I'm still shaking in yet another detox, which some of you know what that feels like. Probably people, that maybe you went through treatment with back some time ago, if you've been in treatment before. And one of the good things about it is that it does work the first time for people who actually can learn. And my problem was I couldn't learn. And why I couldn't learn was I thought I already understood it. I thought I already knew. And so the greatest enemy of new learning is what you think you already know.